Welcome back, Dink friends. We have reached the end of our 72-hour journey together. Proudly, we present Untitled Robot for your educational viewing pleasure. Grab a warm cup of cocoa and your favorite winter blanket. Settle in by the fire and let the technical details warm your heart. As we pass the torch to you, we hope you take it and never forget that if it is very dark, you are likely to be eaten by a grue.
So, you're live. The cameras.
What do you want me to look at first?
So,
I'll probably look at this one. Talk to this one, yeah. Hey everyone, welcome back. Circle City Circuits here, Robot in 3 days, presented by Dinkbots. We have our finished robot that we have not named. So just doing a technical rundown of our robot design and the design choices we made. Before we get into that, I want to talk through briefly our decisions to go with this style of robot. So that all starts with our game theory, rational agent, and then fueling our robot requirements. So number one is being able to move and be robust, to be able to go over the bump, and also be able to handle defense. So good thing we started off with the MK4i all-swerve drivetrain with all Neos. One of the first things we noticed was that we were catching on the bump. So let's put it this way. So when looking at the bottom, basically we removed all bolts that were protruding down, and we replaced them with flat head countersunk screws. And that seemed to work really well. We were able to get over the bump after that. So flipping back down, our next number two robot requirement was be able to shoot and intake. And we put these together because we deemed it essential. There's going to be a lot of fuel on the ground and we want to be able to pick them up. So we quickly started working on a 4-bar intake. Given the amount of defense we expect to happen in this game, this was a good option to not destroy the intake and have it kind of retract whenever we run into a wall or other robot. But obviously it's disassembled. We pivoted due to time constraints and wanted to give teams some options to look at. This was very heavy. We think it could be a good option for teams. You just have to figure out either the linkage system or a different way to drive it and get it outside your robot. So moving back to our new intake, we decided to go with a lightweight slap down. So very compact, just 2 rollers pinching and launching the ball up opposite of each other, one Neo driving direct, and then we kind of have an expandable hopper around this to give us some more room to collect fuel. Coming into the hopper, we get a close-up view of this one. Yeah, no, you're fine. So continuing on with our robot requirements, still number 2 was intake and shoot. So shooter, we decided to go with the Andy Mark shooter that they put on their website. Honestly, it's worked great so far. We definitely have some PID tuning to do to increase it and maybe change some of the variables up here. But honestly, it was simple and easy to get running out of the box. So we had an intake, we had a shooter, but we didn't have a way to get everything in there. So that was kind of the next part. And probably one of the most important parts. Realistically, a lot of people will be able to solve the intake and shooter, but the hopper and active feeding of your shooter, consistent feeding of your shooter, and quick feeding of your shooter is important. We got somewhat active feeding, but very passive in the rest of the robot. So there are a lot of catch points in our hopper. We did our best to funnel the fuel in as best we can, but there is some issues where if you get 2 in here at a time, they can kind of spin for a little bit. We move back and forth, it'll catch one and it'll go up. We had to guide and center them before we went into the shooter. And then we have a lot of wasted space on this. Building this quickly, we weren't able to make it very compact. Yeah, and then our last robot requirement was, well, one of our last top 3 was climbing, or L1 climb for auto and for endgame. We decided to get rid of it due to time constraints and resource constraints. We did mock up a passive hook system that we'll have in our CAD drawn up and may do a segment on later. But basically, you can mount it on the sides of your robot. You want it to be the center of gravity, and then you can drive up. It's an option for a late climb for some teams if they want to keep it simple. So pass it over to Garrett for a run through on software and programming.
Yeah, software and programming for this robot was pretty simple. Broke it out into the code with subsystems for each of the major subsystems. We have a feeder subsystem, intake subsystem, shooter subsystem, drive subsystem, and then not quite on this robot, but we have a vision subsystem. So those would probably be your main subsystems for most teams, maybe running LED subsystem, making use of the Advantage kit from Mechanical Advantage, which enables a lot of the logging, simulation, and replay for our code. But overall, it's not too complex. We have some logic in our shooter subsystem and our drive subsystem to map flywheel PIDs for the shooter based on your distance. So our odometry from our drive will calculate our distance from the hub to the robot, and then use a lookup table to map a shooting RPM for that distance to our shooter. So that's probably a pretty recommended and standard approach that I think would get a lot of teams pretty far if you follow that philosophy.
Yeah, and then highlighting some of the programming and mechanical intertwine parts. We'll redo that. So combining some of the mechanical and electrical stuff for our intake, like I said, we ran a Neo 1-to-1. Our pivot mechanism, we ran 2 Neos on sport gearboxes from AndyMark, both 16-to-1. They seem to work well, but sometimes stall out if we have balls jammed up in here. And then we also have 2 through-bore encoders. Right now, we're just using 1 and have PID control for that up and down. And then moving on to our indexer, we have a 4-to-1 sport gearbox driven by a Neo with the thrifty 4-inch squish wheels. And then for the shooter, we have a Neo driving 1-to-1. One of the big things is we added on an inertial disc or flywheel to help with the consistency of the shooter. We honestly probably need more, and it's something that you'll want to play around with when you're designing and troubleshooting your shooter. So cool, we'll cut, and then do you want me to do an outro?
No.
Be sure to follow us at DankBots everywhere you consume high-quality robot content. And as always, stay dank, friends.